One Battle After Another, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, has finally hit theatres, and for me, it's the best movie of the year so far. The film unfolds as a politically charged action thriller that blends dark comedy, family drama, and surrealist elements, and the director has pulled it off all magnificently. So in this explained analysis, I'm going to be giving you my breakdown of One Battle After Another, discussing the full plot details, the ending, the meaning of the film, and much more. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the film yet, then I would recommend checking it out before watching my analysis. Before I get into it though, if you want to see more on upcoming releases like One Battle After Another, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my explained video for Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. So One Battle After Another is set in a contemporary America, and the film follows Bob Ferguson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, a former revolutionary now living in seclusion, with his teenage daughter Willa, played by Chase Infiniti. Their quiet existence is shattered when Sean Penn's Stephen J. Lockjaw, a menacing military official, resurfaces, leading to a series of escalating confrontations. The film is actually a contemporary reimagining of Thomas Pynchon's 1990 novel Vineland, though it is not a direct adaptation. Instead, Anderson draws inspiration from the novel's themes and characters, transposing them into a modern context. In Vineland, Pynchon delves into the lives of former activists in the 1980s, examining the impact of their past actions on their present lives. In a similar way, Anderson's film explores the consequences of past revolutionary activities on the characters' current realities. The father-daughter dynamic between Bob and Willa further echoes the relationships in Pynchon's work, highlighting themes of familial bonds amidst political turmoil. Anderson's adaptation also retains Pynchon's signature style, characterized by paranoia, complex narratives, and satirical commentary on American society. So while One Battle After Another diverges in ways from the adaptation, it captures the essence of Pynchon's work, offering a more modern perspective on the enduring themes of radicalism, resistance, and personal transformation. But now that we know about the book behind the film, what happens throughout the new movie, and where does it all lead? Well, the One Battle After Another movie begins with a violent, chaotic raid at the US-Mexico border, where the militant activist group known as the French 75 storms an immigration detention center to free detainees. The group is led by the fierce and theatrical Perfidia Beverly Hills, who alongside her partner Pat Calhoun, later living under the name Bob Ferguson, pursues revolution with a mixture of passion and recklessness. During the raid, Perfidia clashes with Sean Penn's Stephen J. Lockjaw, a brutal military officer whose humiliation at her hands plants the seed for a long-running obsession. Even as their radical campaign builds momentum, Perfidia becomes pregnant with Lockjaw's child, which complicates her relationship with Bob. He doesn't know the child is Lockjaw's, but he wants to protect their family while she insists on pressing deeper into the cause. Their tensions worsen after a failed mission leaves Perfidia captured. Facing threats from Lockjaw and the government, she accepts a deal that places her in a form of protection but isolates her from her comrades. The movement eventually splinters, allies are hunted down, and Bob escapes with their infant daughter, while Perfidia vanishes into exile. 16 years later, the story shifts to the quieter life Bob has tried to build under his new identity. He raises his daughter Willa, who is now a teenager caught between the shadows of her parents' past and her own search for normality. Bob's revolutionary edge has dulled, and his memory for the group's old codes and networks has faded, but he lives with the constant fear of exposure. Willa also knows fragments of the truth, but not the full weight of her parents' history. Meanwhile, Lockjaw has climbed further up the ranks of power, turning his fixation on destroying Perfidia and her family into an institutional crusade. His forces begin to close in, threatening Willa directly and pulling Bob back into the world he thought he had left behind. But with the help of allies like Benicio del Toro's Sergio and Deandra, Bob tries to shield his daughter, navigating safe houses and sanctuary networks, while Willa gradually realizes just how dangerous and inescapable her legacy really is. The tension builds into a relentless chase, with Lockjaw's agents pressing harder, leaving Bob and Willa little room to breathe. The following action sequences, including raids on hideouts and car chases across desert roads, are balanced against moments of intimacy between father and daughter, where regret and love surface. Willa confronts the reality that she was born into a struggle that never truly ended, and Bob is forced to rediscover the sharp instincts of a fighter he once was. And Lockjaw, consumed by his lingering humiliation and twisted fascination with Perfidia, frames the pursuit not only as a mission of state power, but as a personal vendetta. In the end, one battle after another refuses to deliver a clean resolution. Bob ultimately reunites with his daughter Willa after a violent showdown, and Willa kills an attacker in self-defense during the intense car chase in the desert. Colonel Lockjaw, who has been seeking to expose and harm Willa, in part because of her mixed heritage, is exposed and eventually eliminated by his own allies, who realise the truth of his crimes. And this is because Willa is found out to be his daughter following the awkward encounters between him and Perfidia in the past. After they escape the chase, Bob gives Willa a letter from her mother, in which Perfidia apologises for her betrayal and expresses hope for reconnection someday. Then, in the closing scene, Willa hears about protests in Oakland and gets into the car to join them, symbolising that the next generation may take up the mantle of resistance, even under different terms. So in summary, the film ends with father and daughter reunited, the villain defeated, a note of reconciliation from Perfidia, and a passing of the symbolic torch to Willa, suggesting that although this battle is over, the struggle continues in new ways. Bob is confronted with how much his past revolution cost him with safety, stability, and perhaps emotional presence in his daughter's life. He has to make choices about what side of that history his daughter will inherit. He's been trying to protect Willa by hiding her from the revolution and by trying to distance her from it. But in the end, hiding is no longer sufficient. He had to reawaken so that Willa has a chance to know, to fight, or at least witness the truth rather than see it as a myth. So in terms of resolution, the immediate danger posed by Lockjaw is dealt with, but the ending refuses to offer total closure. The ideological stakes, the question of who gets to write history, is left open. The film ends on a note of cautious hope rather than triumph. Yes, this battle has been survived, but the war over memory, power, and what it means to resist continues on. The personal and the political are intertwined, as Willa's identity is now something she must choose to carry forward or even reshape. Essentially, she will not escape what came before and how the resistance has shaped her. So the ending of One Battle After Another carries less of a final answer and more of a statement about what it means to live in the shadow of struggle. On the surface, Bob manages to protect his daughter Willa from Lockjaw's grasp, and the immediate threat of capture or erasure is averted. But the film doesn't frame this as a neat victory. Instead, it shows that every battle, whether it's an armed raid, a chase through the desert, or even a father trying to keep his daughter safe, is only one chapter in a much longer and unfinished fight. Lockjaw as a person may be dead, but the system he represents remains in place. And for Bob, the ending is about reconciling the contradiction that he's carried for years. Essentially, his desire to shield Willa from the dangers of revolution, while knowing that her very existence makes her a part of that history. By stepping back into the role of fighter and father, he admits that hiding will never erase the past, and that silence only feeds the power of those like Lockjaw. Willa in turn comes of age, recognizing that her life is inseparable from the ideals and sacrifices of her parents. The larger meaning, though, is that resistance is not a singular act with a permanent payoff. It is ongoing, cyclical, and often an exhausting experience, essentially one battle after another. For me, it felt like a satirical warning for the whole thing, and you see many flaws on either side of the battle throughout the film. The ending's refusal to tie up every thread reinforces this message, as victories are fragile, history is contested, and the responsibility to resist passes from one generation to the next. It's not about winning once and for all, but about choosing again and again. A last thing to mention is Perfida's absence at the very end of the film, as it's one of the strangest aspects that somehow adds layers of meaning to the resolution. Throughout the story, she is the figure who sets everything in motion, the bold revolutionary who humiliates Lockjaw, the mother whose choices fracture her family, and the idealist who refuses to soften her fight even when motherhood and danger collide. But by the time the narrative reaches its climax years later, she is more of a ghost in the whole battle. Her physical absence underscores how the sacrifices of revolution often erase people from their own families and histories. And in the final scenes, her presence is felt in Willa and Bob's choices, with Willa carrying the fire of her spirit and Bob carrying the wounds of loving someone so consumed by a cause. Even without her being there, Perfida shapes every move as though she represents the enduring idea of the resistance itself. And that is something you can exile but never fully destroy. Thematically, her absence drives home the film's central tension in that revolution is never just about one person, but the weight of what they leave behind. Perfida's choices force Bob and Willa to decide whether they will keep running from the past or embrace it, even with all of its costs. The ending of the film suggests that while Perfida isn't physically reunited with them, her legacy lives on in Willa's awakening and Bob's reluctant return to the fight. She reinforces this in her final letter to them, revealing that she is out there and still alive. In other words, Perfidia becomes less of a character that is present and more of a symbol. She's the unfinished struggle itself, still echoing, still demanding, still present even though she's gone. But that was my breakdown and analysis for One Battle After Another. Paul Thomas Anderson's new film is a cinematic triumph that stands as one of the most audacious and resonant films of 2025. Loosely inspired by Thomas Pynchon's Vineland, Anderson transmutes its satirical spirit into a blistering political action epic that pulses with urgency and relevance. It unfolds across two timelines, juxtaposing the fervent idealism of the past with the weary pragmatism of the present, capturing the cyclical nature of resistance and the personal toll of political engagement. Anderson's direction is masterful, blending kinetic action sequences with intimate character studies. The film's pacing is also relentless, yet it never sacrifices emotional depth for spectacle. DiCaprio himself delivers a brilliant performance, embodying a character who is both a product of his time and a reluctant hero. Penn's portrayal of Lockjaw is further chilling, a figure of unyielding authority that serves as a stark contrast to the fragmented resistance. And Teyana Taylor and Regina Hall provide compelling support as fellow revolutionaries, their performances adding layers of complexity to the whole ensemble. The cinematography is further striking, with Anderson and his team capturing the desolate beauty of a dystopian America. The use of colour and composition enhances the film's themes, reflecting the internal and external battles waged by its characters. So overall, it's a visceral experience that challenges its viewers to confront the realities of power, resistance, and legacy. It's a testament to Anderson's prowess as a filmmaker and a poignant reflection on the struggles that define and divide us. In a year marked by numerous cinematic achievements, this film stands as a monumental work that resonates deeply and lingers long after the credits roll. I will be giving my full review for it in the coming days, but as I said, I think this might be my favourite film of 2025. But I do hope this breakdown did help some of you guys understand the film and the main details a bit better, and overall, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it, so don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section. For more videos on upcoming film releases like One Battle After Another, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.